and welcome to the Astranti strategic analysis for the May 2018 MCS sitting on Menta, the public transport multinational. I am Joseph Bowen, as you see here, and I'm just going to quickly walk you through what this document is going to do and also sort of how we come to it. So, firstly, the introduction to the case. It's a highly politicized industry. It's a leading multinational public transport group, has a lot of employees, so it's a very interesting business compared to most businesses we get, given how closely tied it is to pestle factors. So, in regards to how we come to this, we have a wealth of experience with the case studies across our team. Myself in particular, I have been focused on the management case study since quite a while now. And then we also have my colleagues Pete and James, who are very, very experienced with this kind of exam. So collectively, we come to these models, how we apply them to each business, and then it comes over to me to present that to you as well. So let's kick off with the first of the models. We have the rational model, and this is simply how governance and ethics stakeholders interact with our mission and objectives, partnered with the kind of business environment which has our SWOT, 5 forces, and pestle, that kind of thing. So now we're going to go into what some of these are. So the first stage is to ensure we understand where the organization is heading and whether it meets stakeholder demands. So just a quick brief note on the mission. It is essentially what the business is all about, covered in the first few chapters of, I believe, F2 in the study text. But essentially, it's our purpose, strategy, values, and policies. Why does it exist? How will the organization compete? What does it stand for morally? And also, what are the policies people are expected to follow? So it's quite an amalgamation of things. And as we move forward, we can see that performance of this mission is often based around the balanced scorecard. And this will have the financial perspective, the learning perspective, customer perspective, and internal perspective. And if you're clued up on your performance measures, you'll know these perspectives. And typically, we're looking at things like profit, return on investment, cash flow for financials, number of high quality recruits from learning. Internally, we're looking at like sort of success rates, investment, project management. And on a customer perspective, we're looking at numbers, how many complaints, how many services are taken, and our satisfaction from the surveys that those customers kindly fill out for us. So when we look into governance, of course, it's the way organizations are directed, controlled, and it ensures that the organization is run in a way that's right for all stakeholders, particularly the shareholders, as with many businesses. The UK Code of Corporate Governance gives us a set of sort of guidelines for good governance, such as independent NEDs. That's quite a big one. Audit nomination, risk management focus. You get the idea. What's important is that you remember these aspects when we had that quite ambiguous page in the pre-scene regarding the structure. Maybe a little bit of family intermingling there, whether they should be separated as chairman and CEO. I'm not quite sure the specifics because we weren't given that information. However, if you are in the exam, let's not forget that. So let's have a look at how this can be applied. So we are unsure if it's a listed company. This is quite a big deal. So they might not be duty bound to implement the governance that we spoke about in terms of the previous slides, and also in the analysis videos, we raised the question about the sort of brothers being maybe both chairmen and CEOs of different wings of the business. So we're not entirely sure at this point If they're not listed, there's no real legislative need rather to implement governance, or good governance rather. So that is a question mark. Furthermore, we know there's many subsidiaries based on functional and divisional. They had the functional branches for like marketing, operations, and then they had a divisional structure underneath operations. So it's worth considering. It's worth mentioning that there is the potential for the agency problem to arise here. That's quite typical of any kind of board structure, really. It's one of those things you kind of have to mention, as we've covered before, in different aspects of our analysis suite. Furthermore, there's no mention of remuneration, nomination, or audit committees. Again, this links back to, are they actually duty bound? But if they are, if it's given in the exam, then this is worth noting. So ethics and CSR has played a major part in essentially every exam. 21 people skills mark. This is essentially a core component of the exam that they will test you on, the people skills, and it typically revolves around ethics. So it's possible that you get a specific ethical situation and you need to consider CSR and ethics to essentially any kind of question you're given as a baseline, but also when there's a given ethical situation, you need to remember to say that golden phrase of "it's simply the right thing to do." Furthermore, feel free to have a look at our guide to ethics that we also have on offer for students. It's very, very useful if it's one of those areas which you stumble on or worry about. It's just a condensed sort of document that demonstrates how ethics can be portrayed in the exam and how to go about thinking about it. Essentially, it sounds a bit strange, but it will be very useful if that is an area for concern for you individually. But let's move on. So the key ethics and CSR issues from this case is reducing accidents, so bus drivers getting hurt by maybe doors on the bus. It sounds a little bit silly, but there's a number of accidents that come about when using vehicles. We have to think about the CSR reports. They don't really have one in the pre-scene. What would it look like if they made one? Reducing pollution as part of the operations. Bus travel in general is a reduction on everyone traveling by their own car, but they are themselves not utilizing sort of green fuels, for example. Furthermore, sustainable services, legal liabilities, ethics versus profitability. As we saw with the whole sort of Jaria buses press coverage, we need to be very wary about this one in particular. I dare say, if you looked at the top 10, this is one of the key aspects of the entire pre-scene, let alone just ethics and CSR, but then also health and safety, which is very, very prevalent regarding the sort of children aspects, the school boards, the subsidies. We need to keep this in mind. Other issues that are more sort of niche, but definitely plausible. Bribery to win a contract, the politicized nature of the industry means that we have to be wary of this possibility. Professional ethics, again, linking to CIMA's ethical standards, one of those things that they want you to mention, so feel free rather to pick up your essentially free marks by putting that forward. And then also our treatment of staff, redundancy fears with the whole driverless buses that we spoke about in other videos. It's very much a key concern. It's new technology. They've played with it in the past. If you looked at the pre-scene itself, they're thinking about it. Redundancies are a big topic as well. So CSFs, critical success factors, they're key to the organization, of course, to succeed. And this is essentially something that came up quite a bit when we went through the repetitive nature of the pre-scene regarding reliability, efficiency, low cost. These kind of aspects came up frequently. So again, these are the critical success factors as we covered: low cost, high quality, customer trust. So that's kind of the appealing factor. Are they making too much profit? That has happened in the UK bus industry where customers felt cheated, that they paid higher ticket prices and bus companies were posting huge profits. But also regulation adherence, number 1 on our top 10 issues. And reliability is a key one to stop them using alternative modes of transport. And we also know that Menta haven't made too much effort to lure customers away from other modes. They mentioned that they've thought about it, made a little bit of an effort, but essentially reliability is the key aspect. Otherwise, it's going to come unstuck, really. They'll use Uber maybe, ride sharing services. So something to keep an eye on. And now let's move on to the stakeholders. Every issue has stakeholders, so whenever we get a question, we need to look at how we can mention the stakeholders to get technical marks. They are the people that are affected by the organization in some way, and we have to analyze any action we take in an exam question and how it relates to stakeholders. And if we consistently mention this, we will pick up our technical marks. And if we can refer this to a model even, we'll get even more marks. So if you recall, we can place stakeholders into respective boxes such as informed or satisfied depending on their power and interest. So just remember, these can be consistently mentioned. You might not need to go into in-depth detail because of the question not really asking for it, but mentioning it will ensure you're consistently picking up technical marks. I just wanted to take a few minutes of your time to first extend my hope that you enjoyed the free sample that you've just viewed, but also to just sort of explain what else Astranti do to help you pass your exam really effectively, provided you found our sample particularly interesting and insightful, of course. So, of course, we have a study text for every module, ranging from P1 to F3, and the certificate level is also free on our website. So we have study texts throughout the CIMA course, every module you could hope to study. The certificate level are free, as I mentioned, and then the rest of them, ranging from P1 to F3, are all available to purchase. Alongside this, if you're not so much a study text kind of student and you prefer a visual way of learning, we have the course videos. We essentially break down the study text into bite-sized presentations with a walkthrough, and it's a very, very, very engaging way of explaining the course. Following this, we have the pre-scene analysis, where we break down each pre-scene sitting into a number of videos, going through the whole document, but also adding a top 10 recommendations for what will come up in the exam, and also a strategic analysis where we put all the models you'd find in E2, for example, to the pre-scene itself, whichever that may be at the time. Alongside this, we provide an industry analysis. This is a document and accompanying video which help you give that contextual information in your exam. So, for example, if the pre-scene's on the oil industry, the industry analysis will break down the oil industry, the current topics, trends, issues, what the competitive market looks like, all those kind of aspects, all condensed into one so you can spend your time wisely in your study period. Following on from this, when you actually want to practice all this knowledge, we have mock exams for all of our materials. So StudyText has a generic mock exam based on the module, whereas the pre-scene analysis has mocks available to purchase that are based on that specific pre-scene, that are targeted to the key issues we believe will come up. And if you're not content with just doing those mock exams and practicing that way, we have a marking and feedback system where you can purchase the ability to send in your paper, have it marked by a CIMA qualified accountant, and get personalized feedback on whether you can improve X or Y area. And sort of finally, if you will, if you're feeling really underprepared and that exam is coming really, really soon, the masterclasses are offered by Astranti, and they're essentially a crash course in anything you could want for that topic. So if it's a masterclass on the pre-scene, it's going to give you absolutely everything that you could possibly need to know about the pre-scene in one really condensed sitting. Likewise, if it was the F3 masterclass, you would have all of F3 gone through in a very crash course style presentation and video link. You can also purchase it post-stream as opposed to viewing it live, all these kind of aspects. We are very, very confident that these materials will help you get the exam success that you want. So we have a pass guarantee. Provided you fill out a form which demonstrates that you have utilized our materials to a large extent and actually taken the time to study them, and you have unfortunately failed, we will offer you the same materials again for the next sitting as a consolidatory offer to ensure that you can get back on the horse and get that exam grade that you want. With that said, thank you very much for watching the sample video. I hope you enjoyed it and it gives you a lot of confidence in Astranti and your CIMA future.